All right, welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Fanon, and in this video, we're going to go over some hilarious comments and back and forth between Errol Spence Jr., Danny Garcia, and Angel Garcia about Danny Garcia's excuses for having lost to Errol Spence Jr. after his fight with Jose Benavidez. Man, I'm telling you, man, I'm kind of split on this one, but hey, let's talk about that in this video. All right, welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Fanon. In this video, we're going to be in the 154 pound and 147 pound division. Errol Spence Jr. got a little bit of a beef going on with Danny Garcia after Danny Garcia and his camp, through his father, Angel Garcia, have been discounting and dismissing Errol's win over him that took place right after Spence's car accident. I do believe that fight was in 2020 or it's 2019. It's been a while now, but Errol Spence Jr. responds to it, and it is definitely a conversation worth having. So let's do that in this video. But before I do that, let me welcome you back to the channel. If you're a longtime subscriber and supporter to the channel, thank you so much for continuing to support the channel. Chop it up with me about these boxing subjects that are going on. We've been spending a lot of time in the welterweight division over the last couple months. Probably, for the most part, because it's just not a lot going on in boxing. Really waiting on the next, the next big fights to be made. There are some fights that are, going on, big fights that are going on, like the Anthony Joshua fight with Usyk and Canelo versus Gennady Golovkin, but not a whole lot of interest in it from a lot of American boxing fans. But this particular topic, which is Errol Spence Jr. and Danny Garcia, I had to talk about because I think that it's important in a lot of different ways. First things first, Danny Garcia, who just beat Jose Benavidez, and beat Jose Benavidez, in my opinion, very, very convincingly, and had an easier time, I think, during the time that the fight took place against over the 12 rounds than Terrence Crawford had with Jose Benavidez a few years ago, where, he got the knockout in the 12th round. So I thought that was a very, very good showing by Danny Garcia, because Jose Benavidez is a very good fighter, right? Now, obviously, I'm not saying that Danny Garcia outperformed Terrence Crawford against Jose Benavidez. Personally, I don't like those triangle theories. Danny beat him, Terrence beat him, and it is what it is. However, very good, strong showing from Danny Garcia at a new weight class, 154 pounds. But after the fight and slightly before the fight, he was talking about why he lost his last fight to Errol Spence Jr., and he felt that a lot of it had to do with mental health issues, and that he had anxiety and his head just wasn't right. He was really foggy going into the fight. Just, his body was in shape, but his mind was not there. Well, Errol Spence Jr. ain't trying to hear none of that. In fact, gets real nasty about it in a tweet that he put out, and I'm going to paraphrase it because there's a lot of cussing in it. It was like, look, man, I pretty much don't care about none of that nonsense. There's a whole bunch of people out here trying to pay their rent, trying to pay their mortgage, that don't know how they're going to do it, right? And so I ain't trying to hear none of this stuff about some rich dude, who's having a hard time, right? Because Danny Garcia is a very wealthy dude. He ain't worried about paying his rent or a lot of the other problems that regular people have. And Errol says that's, so I'm not trying to hit it. I'm sure my people had a lot more stress on them than I have, right? Now, here's my thing. Mental health is a real issue. And if you've not ever experienced it or been around somebody that really acutely experienced it, you will not see, man. What your mind does to you, your mind does to you, and you ain't got no choice. You literally, if you have the wrong mental health issue, man, somebody could wave a dandelion in front of you, and your mind may trigger off like that is a straight up tiger, right? Like a real tiger. tiger about to kill you. If in my opinion, you should be real careful about blowing off people's claim that they were suffering from anxiety or that they were really suffering from, real issues, because some of that stuff is chemical. Some of it can be chemical. It's not necessarily about how you deal with the pressures in life. If your brain just triggers you to go that way, your brain triggers you to go that way. Doesn't matter how much money you're going to have in the bank or how, relatively comfortable your life is compared to somebody else. It's like, for example, like if you get any type of disease, if you get like lung cancer don't care about how much money you make. And your brain is an organ in your body, just like anything, like maybe a muscle, you think of it as a muscle, you can think of it as an organ, whatever you think, but it is just as susceptible to injury as anything else. And when it's injured, it's just injured. However, but it is something that not a lot of people are really trying to hear, right? Especially almost 2 years after the fact, and one where you fought, and you definitely fought. All right. It ain't like you couldn't make it into the ring. You had like crippling anxiety where you couldn't get in, you couldn't get to the arena, you couldn't get on a plane, you couldn't get to arena, none of that. The fact of the matter is that Errol Spence Jr. had just as many problems going into that fight as Danny Garcia, and I mean, come on, man, this dude literally got recovered from a car accident where we flew 30 feet in the air and landed on cement, right? So both of these guys could very well have had, real trouble, problems going into the fight. Errol's was definitely physical and honestly could have been mental as well. Danny Garcia's, he's saying, is mental, but at the end of the day, man, Danny Garcia probably shouldn't have said it at all. Probably should have just let that fly. Like, hey, man, the better man won that night. Jab was too much for me, what have you. I want to run it back. And now he did say that he wants to run that fight back. I personally will be okay with it, man. Like at this point in time, like I said in the beginning of the video, I'll take almost any of these guys fighting each other right now. I mean, I would be jumping through the roof if tomorrow I heard Jaron Ennis is fighting Keith Thurman, or Danny Garcia was fighting Keith Thurman, or even somebody like Tony Harrison. Whatever y'all need to do to get these fights popping, y'all need to do to get these fights popping. If Errol doesn't get the Terrence Crawford fight and he moves up to 154 pounds, hey man, I'll take it. I'll take a Danny Garcia versus Errol Spence rematch. I like all of these guys at that weight class. I think Danny Garcia is an exciting fighter and a very good fighter. Like him as a person. Keith Thurman, I think he's a very, very good fighter. He's a very good fighter. Like him, think he's a funny dude. I know he can be kind of funny acting, so there's that side of him. However, he's a very, very competitive fighter. Terrence Crawford is obviously a great fighter and a very entertaining fight. Any way you guys match it up, man, let's just make it go so we can have some good fights to talk about. And then other people can stop complaining so much about the conversations going on about the Errol Spence Jr. and Terrence Crawford fight, which is really, really, really overshadowing a lot of the boxing conversations, including the big fights that I talked about earlier with Gennady Golovkin and Canelo Alvarez, and Alexander Usyk and Anthony Joshua. But hopefully we'll get something soon. But kind of feeling Danny Garcia on that, but I understand where Errol Spence Jr. coming from. I just thought it was funny. But anyway, that's my take on the matter. You let me know what you think in the comment section. And with that, I'm out. Deuces.